Alright, hey, what's going on? I'm Great Grandpa Beebe. Welcome back to the show. I'm here today with my good friend Kim Green.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about some interesting things when it comes to permaculture and actually communes, like different places where people try to strive for a utopian type of ideal, right? Like,
yeah. Yeah. Strive for.
yeah. I visited you down in Black Mountain, North Carolina, a few years ago, probably.
Yeah,
Right?
I think it's been like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Wow, really?
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
I think that way too. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that last year was about 10 years in one, so everyone's just like,
Yeah.
just everyone gets a gimme on that one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But yeah, I was down there just recently, and that's why I contacted you, because I ended up at a tea shop that we were at one point.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute, I know this place. And I was at White Horse playing that open mic again.
White Horse. Yeah.
Yeah, the tavern venue.
Yeah. I think it's like White Horse Black Mountain.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that owner guy was still there. He's still running it. And I was like, hey, man, I remember all your Jimi Hendrix stories. And he's just like, all right, well, fuck you then. I'm going to walk away. I'm just like, oh, shit. I didn't mean to, offend you, man, you know?
He's probably just disappointed couldn't tell him again.
Yeah, I think so. But he came back later, and he's like, oh, thanks for coming out, you know? And I'm just like, all right, man, cool. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
I don't know. You always got to take people with who they are, where they are at any given time, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
It's all up for grabs anyway, but...
Yeah, you never know what kind of day they had, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is, you know? Nobody knows what anybody's going through, and it's probably worse than you think it is.
Probably. Good point. I like that. I'll have to remember that.
So the commune down there in Black Mountain, right? What was that called again?
It's Earth Haven Eco Village.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I remember, I got to stay at your place and play the piano there.
Yeah, the big house.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, well, anyway, we'll go into deep about a couple of these things here later.
All right.
But just maybe just explain kind of what the place was like briefly.
Okay. So it was, it's permaculture based.
Okay.
Which is, if you're not familiar with what permaculture is, and I am by no means an expert, essentially my take on it is that it is a way of living with the land in a respectful way, and it mimics the natural patterns.
Okay. Yeah.
In nature. So
cool.
They were really focused on honoring that and growing food that way, but also it extended to how they live their lives.
Okay. Yeah.
And then it went well beyond being a permaculture.
I know there's a lot of solar panels and things too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was really cool.
Yeah, and they also used hydro,
Okay.
a micro hydro power,
Yeah.
which was very impressive.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about that stuff. And
Yeah, it's super interesting how you can run an entire community off of things like that, you know?
Yeah, and
it's completely possible.
yes,
It's
it is completely possible.
with technology 5 years ago even.
Actually, probably way further back
in the 70s, 80s even,
Yeah.
I would say.
I mean, I don't know how long solar panels.
Jimmy Carter put them on the White House back in the 70s.
Okay, well there you go.
Yeah.
So
they were expensive back then. But the prices dropped drastically now, you know. So just as of today, 2021, you know, the price per kilowatt is somewhere around 5 cents or something like that. Which it used to be $10 or $20, you know, back then.
Yeah, I didn't know that it's dropped so drastically.
Those are pretty round figures. Don't quote me on that, but that's kind of what I'm remembering right now.
I'm gonna look it up on my phone later and
Okay.
let you know if you're wrong.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So, what intrigues me about the entire kind of like idea of trying to get together and like I guess being there's one way to look at it where you are saying, hey, let's live more in tune with like what the earth is, you know, and we are beings, and we're essentially like we're part of the earth, and so that it makes a lot of sense, you know, to live with things, to like kind of cohabitate in a way. Right. Whereas like for centuries, like we operate off of these stories and like in these cultures, you know, that like have certain boundaries and certain like goals to get us to work harder, to, you know, like which was always really necessary, you know, to the extent that like we needed to survive. You know, like people had a ton of kids so that they had enough, you know, workers, you know, at one point.
Yeah.
But it's gotten to the point now where we don't, like, only 1% of the population farms, you know, and it used to be 6%, 99% of the people farm before, you know.
Yeah.
And really that's our benchmark for what jobs are. That's our benchmark for how we stay alive, basically, you know, as a people. Mm-hmm. And so now we live in this kind of like hustle based, you know, trying to get money, trying to like work as fast as we can all the time. And you mentioned that right when I got here, or a second ago, when we were talking about, it's like, okay, well, you're here, let's do this, let's get to work, let's get it, you know.
Yeah. And it's hard to step away from that mindset.
It is, yeah, for sure. Because it's so ingrained in us, I think, you know, not even just like the way our culture is now, the way our media is now, but just I think it's hardwired genetically for, you know, thousands of years in us, you know, to try to like and maybe, you know, the American culture has a certain type of workism about it that is more pushing in that direction than other past societies or even other cultures right now. I've heard that Americans work more hours a year than even the Japanese, who we think of being like really, really hard workers. You know, like I remember hearing 10 years ago that their like suicide rate was up from just nonstop work over there at one point.
They have a term for it. And don't ask me what that term is, because I don't recall it.
Yeah.
But they have had so many people perish from overwork.
Yeah.
I mean, die at their desks.
Yeah.
That they have a term for it.
Wow. Yeah, it's a strong part of your story or culture in that society. Mm-hmm. You know, like that, if you have to make up an entire word for it, you know.
Yeah. It wasn't like that I don't recall it being like that in like the 70s. I lived in Japan for a little while. Yeah. But I was very young. It was early 70s. I was like 4 and 5 years old. So now I'm totally aging myself, but
right.
And the culture then, of course, in my childlike mind, was very different. Yeah. And much more laid back, and honor is a big deal. I don't know anymore what it's like to be on the ground there and in it. Yeah. But,
it's always been a culture that fascinates me a lot, honestly. I don't know why. I've always just kind of like gravitated there in my mind in ways.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
It's a very beautiful culture.
Yeah, like their philosophy, and even just, I mean, as far as dark as it is to like come up with a word like that, I think that it makes it more real. Mm-hmm. And in our culture, I think that many times we kind of shy away from addressing things like directly like that, you know?
Yeah. We sweep a lot of things under the rug and pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah. And it's on purpose in a lot of ways, I think, too, as far as the media is concerned, you know?
Well, even as individuals, I think that if something is too great to tackle, or we're not sure where to begin, we just keep ignoring it. Yeah. And it's never going to go away until we address it.
Yeah.
So, but our media is really helpful with us just sweeping things under the rug
Yes.
and pretending that things don't exist. Although, on the flip side of that,
Yeah.
our news
Yeah.
is always about what's wrong, hardly ever about what's right.
That's true. But they whitewash it. Like George Carlin used to talk about, you know,
Yeah.
like the soldiers coming back from Vietnam were shell-shocked, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like, that's an abrasive way to put it,
Yeah.
you know? And it feels more real in a lot of ways, you know? And then it turned into another term, and then it turned into PTSD.
Yeah, I saw that routine. So I
Yeah.
think it went through 4 or 5 different phases, and we landed on PTSD.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way that they try to like kind of smooth it out, you know, like especially when it comes to things like that, though. I mean, they don't talk about like all the wars that we've been in for 20 years. Like no one, like there's a lot of people that don't even know that that's happening, you know.
We've been at war
Yeah.
more than we have been at peace.
Yes, definitely.
And
Yeah.
that's factual.
Yeah, I
So-
know. Like as a nation, as a 250, 270-year-old country, you know, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
At least in the last
Yeah,
150 years
Yeah.
or more.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, so yeah, America.
Well, and you said, you know, we were work nation.
Yeah,
I think a lot of that, personally, started with the Industrial Revolution.
yeah. Well,
where
yeah, for
driving
sure.
that work benefited somebody else's wallet.
And then you have the introduction of mechanical clocks, and like trying to get people to be exactly where you want them to be, and working for this amount of time, and like it. We never had like what your wage per hour was before the Industrial Revolution. That wasn't even a thing that people thought of.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, how much did you do? It's like, well, I got all of this done. It's like, great.
Next
Doesn't
time,
matter.
do more.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so they played that game, right? Like,
Yeah.
well, I'm going to like not try as hard. Don't try as hard, right? You'll just be like, okay, get this many done, so that the next day if you get a little bit more, then it looks like you're working harder. Don't try to get everything right off the gate, kind of thing. But
Or even, this is it. This is
Right.
this is as much as you can do, because if you
Yeah.
do a little more, they
Yeah.
want a little more.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you're still getting the
Yeah.
same amount of money.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's always been a weird place to be on this planet, like doing these like I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to get into I guess that's kind of the story. That's kind of the story that we like formulate ourselves on. I've been thinking about this a lot as far as like we think of like our brains as computers now. Like that's kind of the analogy a lot of people kind of just informally use,
Right.
And so I think about like, well, what's the operating system of like our brain, Like our computer has Windows or Mac OS or whatever, and I'm like, all right, well, like I think that our operating system is just a story. It's like we think of our lives as just a long story. We think of a town as a story, We think of like the road as a story, and we give them all weird names all the time. Just to compound that, just to like make the point almost.
Yeah.
It's really weird, but I think it makes a lot of sense, Like money itself is kind of a story of exchange between people, Really, it's just we devised a story to quantify like the energy that we're expending almost, It's like, well, I expend this much energy, and so this is worth that much, It's so weird. It's such a weird thing, but I mean, that's how we almost like cultivated this like weird like a flexible collective of humanity that we are. Like we needed a certain way to establish trust between people that we don't even know who they are, and so when it comes down to something like that, then you're how do you trust somebody, halfway around the world to, I don't know, not poison you or something like that, or
Yeah.
How do you trust a whole stadium full of people that you don't know, that you just went to a concert at, you know? Like, it's those type of things don't like happen with other species on the planet, you know? Like, if you're like a chimpanzee and you go to a stadium full of other chimpanzees, it's just going to be a massive fight, you know?
I don't know.
Yeah?
I mean, that's a lot to think about and ponder, right?
Yeah.
I would hope that on some level, we have a lot in common with the other species on this planet that are mammals or, you know, insects beyond, right? And so I think that there is some level of trust.
Yeah.
But I see your point in that too. I mean, there's the fight or flight. That's natural.
Yeah.
And if you're in an uncomfortable situation, which that would be, then you're gonna go one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
Or you have that trust. I mean, we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you said. So I don't know. I picked up a snake today,
right?
Yeah. And I had to move it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it didn't react the way I expected it to, which would be to be aggressive with me.
Yeah.
It allowed me to do it.
Okay.
And then the same thing happened with the grasshopper, which I was actually the grasshopper was under attack by the snake.
Yeah.
So this is kind of weird that this happened today. And a grasshopper can easily jump away from me.
Yeah.
And it was somewhat injured. And I bent down and scooped it up, and it didn't react either. So there was some level of trust there too.
Yeah.
And probably some desperation.
Yeah.
Which may have led to some of that trust. I don't know.
That's how we establish danger in our surroundings, you know? Like, we use our kind of like the primitive side of our brain in a way, is that kind of like instinctual, like, I'm afraid right now. Or like, even if I am at a concert and I'm a human, like, I still have like a sense where I don't trust everybody there, you know?
Oh yeah, me either. Me either.
It's like...
Right, you're right. And if I were to approach a bear or some predator in the woods, my initial instinct is going to be fear.
Because the reason I brought up chimpanzee is because, like, they generally trust, you know, somewhat trust the people in their own kind of group, you know? And, the males will still fight each other, you know, for the females and things.
Same with us.
Right, yeah, exactly. Like, it's not that different. But the difference is that they won't trust other groups of chimpanzees at all, you know, because that's an entirely different group and they don't have any connection to them, you know. So that's...
Yeah, we do the same thing.
In a way, yes. Like, you ain't from around here, are you? You know, kind of.
Or you don't think like I think.
Yeah, that's true,
too. Or
you
don't dress like I dress.
Yes.
So I'm going to be apprehensive. I may approach.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we do.
Sometimes we dress against the grain on purpose, you know?
Yeah.
Just to kind of push people, in a way.
And I'm thinking, like, when we're all in a stadium together, there's usually a common denominator that brings us together.
That's true, too. That is also true.
So then we're a little more at ease because we're typically with people that we can identify with or who we maybe see as our people.
Yeah.
But if I go into a stadium with people I know are not my people, that I don't feel comfortable with, then I am going to be in that fear.
Yeah.
Place.
If I pull up in a Jaguar, slick back hair, and a suit, and nice shoes, and walk into a gas station in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, right? Like,
somebody's gonna look at you.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah, exactly. You know.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's really interesting, like, just knowing the stereotypes and the taboos and, like, kind of just like, and then being able to navigate based off of that sometimes too, you know. I don't know. Anyway.
That was cool. I'm going to be thinking about that at 2 a.m.
Right. Yeah. So, back to living with the land, and so, because like the stories that we create aren't always reality, you know. I would say that the stories that we make up in our own heads are generally not reality, you know.
Yeah. Funny you should say that.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of pondering about that myself lately.
Yeah.
So.
Me as well. I
Yeah.
think that everyone needs to be able to check themselves at the door, when it comes to being like, okay, I thought this was going to be all of this, but it's really not when I got here, and like, it's kind of what I thought it was going to be, but nothing like what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and that happened to me.
Yeah, it happens to me constantly. Yeah.
But that happened to me specifically living at that community.
Oh, okay.
So,
cool.
Yeah.
Good segue. Can you go deeper with that? Or,
Sure, yeah. So, I hadn't done a lot of research on intentional communities.
Okay, yeah.
I had some idea of what they're like, and I'd like to say I didn't go into it with any kind of...
preconceived notions?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I think about it, and the further I am away from that story, the more I realize that I had some subconscious preconceived notions.
Yeah.
At the very least, right?
Yeah.
So, you see movies and media plays a picture for you. And
yeah, I get that.
One of the assumptions I made was I was going to go into this community. Everybody's about community.
Yeah.
Which is true.
Yeah.
Right? To a degree. But we're all still human.
For sure.
Right? And we all have our stories, whether they're true or not.
Yeah.
And we all still have our bullshit that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Our wounds.
Yeah.
Our traumas, right? So I thought I'd go move into this community and everyone would welcome me.
Yeah.
And it would be kumbaya. Hey, sister, come on in the door, We're so glad you're here. And it was not like that at all.
Yeah.
It was quite the opposite, actually.
Wow.
When I first entered in.
Yeah. It takes a while for people to build trust.
It does. It does. And the thing I didn't realize about these communities, and I'm sure... I can't speak for every community, but I imagine that this happens at a number of them.
Yeah.
Is you get people who are really interested in that, and they just pop in.
Yeah.
And then they kind of go like, not for me.
Yeah.
And they pop back out.
Yeah.
Or they stay there for a little while, but they drift. And then you have the people who intend for this to be the rest of their lives or most of their lives, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I found there is... like we talked about, right? We don't know you.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're here, and this is our home.
Yeah.
And you're coming to our home.
Yeah.
That we've built and we've worked hard for.
Yeah.
And we have our ideals about how this should be.
Yeah.
And how are you going to fit in here? And are you going to stay?
Are you going to fit in here?
Yeah. Are you going to fit in here? I had a number of people tell me, I don't want to warm up to you because you'll just go away.
Yeah.
Because they had seen so much of that.
A lot of turnover.
Yeah, building those friendships to just be grief-stricken later at the loss, right?
Yeah.
And some parts of me could understand that.
Yeah.
Other parts of me are like, I guess I've had a lot of people pop in and out of my life. True. And you just love them while they're there.
Yeah.
And then you let them go and wish them well. And you never know.
Yeah.
People have a way of coming back, whether you want them to or not, right? So...
generally speaking.
Yeah. Sometimes you're like, ooh, I thought we were done.
Yeah, okay.
So, I didn't totally understand that. And then, of course, I'm coming in, and I want to be accepted, and I want to fit in.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be on the outside perimeter.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to have the experience. So, that was interesting. Plus, I came in under very unusual circumstances. So I didn't...
Is this the Brian Love scenario?
Yeah.
Which I've told this story a couple times, but I don't know maybe the whole story, or I was only there for like 3 days, and I was picking that up real heavy, as far as like, some of the cooler aspects of the community to me, from what I saw in, generalities, was just like, oh, we're going to have coffee on Tuesday mornings together,
Coffee and trade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And coffee and trade?
That's what
it
they
was?
called it. It's like their little farmer's market and coffee time.
Yeah,
and they called it coffee and trade, which I loved.
Yeah, yeah.
I still love it.
That was amazing. Yeah, for sure.
It was very cool.
Met some interesting people that morning, and then you know, and then I just remember chickens and like cows and solar panels and some really interesting architecture.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, a lot of art adorning different bridges and the houses themselves and things like that.
Yeah.
That was really cool, you know. And but there was this like weird like kind of vibe through the whole community about this guy Brian Love.
Yeah.
And like I just remember that like that kind of like look in people's eyes when they would mention him, kind of, I guess. And because you were living in his house, right?
I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess how the quick and dirty.
Right. Well, the house is really cool, first off.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say that. Like, the guy sounded like he built that house, right?
He built that house and he was 27 years old.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, he's an architect then, basically.
He was a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounded like he gave that community a lot of hope then, you know, or maybe something in that, you know, general, I don't know, but like that house was engineered like with the floors like absorbed energy from the sun all day, so they were warm at night.
It was a passive solar design.
A passive solar design, That's
which
cool.
is fascinating, and I knew nothing about that until I moved into that house.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, very
like
cool.
I've studied a lot of solar in my life. I've read solar textbooks, and I never heard anything about this before. You know,
it's different because it's a building style. It's how you construct the house to begin with.
Yeah.
To take advantage of the solar energy.
Yeah.
And so it's and it was also a cob home.
Okay.
So it's built of all natural materials, and everything came from the land.
Oh,
there.
wow. Okay.
So it's south facing.
Yeah.
Passive solar homes are south facing.
Yeah.
They have long overhangs on the roofs.
Yeah.
So that when the sun is highest in the sky in the summer, you don't get it beating into the windows.
Oh.
But when it's low in the winter, you get all that sunlight.
Wow.
And then the floors are concrete. And we can stop if you don't want to go into this depth.
No, yeah, I love this. This is amazing. I remember being like walking barefoot across those floors, and they were warm at night for sure.
Yes.
You know.
So the floors are concrete.
Yeah.
And they absorb all the heat of the sun.
Yeah.
Right. They're the concrete or stone or something porous like that that's going to hold on to the heat.
Yeah.
And the windows take up, I think, 2/3 of the front of the house.
Okay.
So they get all that sunlight in, and it can absorb it then, and then at night, after the sun goes down, it releases that heat.
Oh, okay.
And then those overhangs protect that from happening in the summertime, so the house stays cooler.
Yeah.
So it would be 10 degrees outside.
Yeah.
And 60 degrees in that house with no heating.
Wow.
So I had a wood stove.
Yeah.
I primarily used that wood stove for the fun of it.
Wow.
I didn't really cook on it because I really struggled to figure it out.
Did you stay a whole winter down there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I lived in that property because of circumstances for 6 months.
Gotcha.
And then I moved out of that house and moved just behind it and just outside of Earth Haven.
Okay.
Like feet away from the Earth Haven border.
Yeah, I think I remember
boundary.
you showing me that spot.
Yeah, and I lived there for 6 months.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So a whole year there total.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that was one of the main things that really struck me. It was the engineering of that place. So this Brian Love guy, right? He gets kicked out of the community, right? Like right before you arrive, or did you know him?
Yeah, he got kicked out of the community before I arrived, but it wasn't. I think there had been a pretty decent time period, and I don't remember what that time period was, but I think it was at least a year.
Okay. So within the year, maybe? Because it seemed recent to me when I was there, you know?
Yeah. It was still very fresh.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So that's what you were picking up on. They were still going through the process of finalizing his departure, because when you build a house in a community like that, you have to sell it to a member.
Okay.
At the time.
Okay.
I don't know if that's changed.
Right.
But
like
at the
there's
time,
certain ground rules in the community.
Right. You
Wow.
can't just sell your house to anybody.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you want to make sure you bring somebody into the community who has the same.
Well, and he knew that rule before he built that place, I'm sure.
Yeah. What was interesting is he moved there, and this is all kind of. I've heard this through stories and information from Earth Haven, but he moved there at age 16, I believe.
Okay.
He left home.
Oh, wow.
So that became his family.
Wow.
And he became to them family, right?
Yeah.
But it was also like a son, I think. I can't speak for that community, but my impression is he was a son they raised into manhood.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it was an extremely painful situation.
Wow.
To even ask him to have to leave.
Yeah.
To leave,
definitely.
right? And then the reaction, and I don't want to go into that because I want to honor his privacy and I want to honor that community and their privacy.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, there was conflict.
Yeah. Yeah.
And disagreements, and it was hard. It was grief and trauma for everybody involved, I think.
You could tell.
Including me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because I got plopped into the middle of this situation and I didn't.
Yeah.
Like totally unknowingly.
Oh, for
unwittingly. But no, he.
Yeah, I saw it for 3 days, and I knew something happened,
Yeah.
And like, I've never known this whole part of the story,
Got you.
But like, I remember like, it felt really real and really strong in the community,
Yeah.
What was going on there?
Well, and unfortunately, it did not end well.
Yeah.
He ultimately passed away.
Really?
Yeah. And so.
Whoa.
I had lived in the house for 5 months.
Yeah.
And he passed away.
Wow.
Maybe 6 months. I lived in the house for about 6 months. I was planning on moving out.
Yeah.
Just because I was in the midst of that really difficult situation and I didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
That's not why I came. So he ended up passing away.
Wow.
And I was still living in the house when that happened.
Wow.
And so then my exit became kind of
pushed. Just forced upon you in a way.
Wow. I could have stayed. I was invited to stay.
Okay.
I chose not to.
Yeah.
Because it was just.
Yeah, it's a certain stigma, I'm sure, and a certain like feeling. I don't know. Yeah.
I had already taken on enough of that trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the grief and felt in the center of that.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't want to. By that time, it was a much heavier experience than I planned on having.
Yeah, definitely.
And I had moved there.
Yeah, I know.
To get away from my own heavy experiences, and I learned that they always say your problems follow you.
Right.
That's
but
true.
Yeah, wherever you go, people already have problems there too.
Right. Yeah. And I just thought this was going to be that utopia that I was looking for.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I've learned that utopia is here.
Yeah. You got to look inward.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the whole kind of like, I know your story, the story that you tell yourself, and then what reality is, and how you approach reality at that point too.
Yeah, and at the time, everybody that was involved, everybody was doing the best they could with what they had, the tools they had, right?
Yeah.
The emotional tools, the mental tools.
Yeah.
At the time. Dealing with something that was probably brand new for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Something they'd never been faced with before.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's on kin of losing a child.
Yeah.
For an entire community.
Yeah. Yes. And for Brian's part, I met him once. I talked to him on the phone many times. And I've watched him on video.
Okay.
I am struck with it's very interesting to me how someone you don't know and have never met could impact your life so profoundly.
Yeah.
Right? So in this case, this was somebody that I had never met except to talk to on the phone to say like, hey, I saw your place on Craigslist and I want to rent it.
Right. Yeah.
And I had no lease. It was all trust, which we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
He was brilliant.
Yeah.
And probably a little, this world was too much.
Yeah.
And I can't speak for him. Right. But this was my perception.
Yeah.
Of being on the outside looking in, and he had a brilliant mind. by 27,
Sounds
like I said,
Yeah.
built a house. Now, that community got involved. He didn't build it by himself, but he fell off of it and got severely hurt.
Oh, damn.
Managed to survive and managed to, like, get up and walk away. I shouldn't say severely hurt.
Right.
He got up and walked away, from what I understand.
Okay.
He wrote a book.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
He...
Like a fictional book or like a...
No, it's on epigenetics, I think.
I was writing a fictional sci-fi novel, and I got way into epigenetics a little bit, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can get his book on Amazon.
Cool.
Because I want to buy a copy.
Yeah.
It's like a thing for me. It's a connection.
Yeah.
And, he sailed. He was a black belt.
Wow.
He was very accomplished, and he died at, I think, age 30.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Yeah.
So,
that's what I was kind of, in my mind, that's where I was placing it.
Yeah, he lived a very big life.
Yeah.
In a short time frame.
Yeah,
so he's done more than I have.
Right,
you know? And I'm,
Well, yeah, and you gotta, like, measure what an accomplishment is, too, sometimes, I think.
That's true.
Last night we had a meeting for the Jubilee Go Festival. We're getting that back together and all that. And
good.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. And then I started thinking about past memories, and then I was like, oh, this person, like, I'm just gonna send him this message. And like that was what I put at the bottom of that message. I was like, hey, perfect nights are accomplishments, actually, like
getting out of bed sometimes is a huge accomplishment.
What are we trying to accomplish here at all? Like there's a like good point. Okay, let's become a black belt and like fight somebody, like I don't know. I mean, there's a certain honor to it too, certain defensive stances that you can use for that. Sure. I'm not downplaying it at all. But
no, but you make an excellent point.
Yeah. So anyway, I've been thinking about that a little bit lately.
Yeah, it's funny, because that's somebody who is always going to be
completely impressive, though. You know, like.
And I think I just felt the need to mention that because.
I mean, he was an architect and he could teach karate. Like.
Yeah.
It sounds like I want to make a movie about this guy. Like. It's an interesting story.
Yeah, and I didn't want his story to be all tragic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's
definitely.
This whole other side to him.
Epigenetics is terribly fascinating, honestly. I mean, that's the way that our skin, like, basically changes color and tans and things, too. Like, we can change, like, based off of our environment. Like, our environment changes our genes, turns on and off genes and things. Like, or at least, like, not, like, the actual DNA, but the epigenetic part of it.
I haven't read his book, and I really want to.
Yeah.
I think I just have to.
Yeah.
I have to be in a certain place for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's no light topic, that's for sure.
No.
It's like some advanced biology, you know.
He wasn't a light person by any means. Like, it's funny, the name of the street. So he and his best friend, who was actually also a sort of father figure for him. They were neighbors. Yeah. So he lived in Brian lived in this great big off-grid home, completely off-grid. Yeah. And his friend and kind of brother, in a sense, lives in a micro hut in the front yard. Okay. And they shared that together. And where was I going with this?
Was that the Zendo?
No, the Zendo's down the road.
Okay,
yeah, that's a great place. That's not even Earth Haven. That's a neighbor's property.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, but
not Earth Haven proper.
Yeah.
On the outskirts of town.
Well, they were a family that had been one of the original families at Earth Haven. And then they just built next door. Gotcha. And he's a farmer, and it's actually one of their rental properties that I lived in once I left Brian's place. Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, I always get the feeling, just being in Ashville generally, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Of like a very laid back people that live there, And I've not been wrong about that. in any way that I've seen anybody there, you know, like pretty much across the board, you know.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Except for people that I know that I visited there recently, because they were just like completely work oriented, you know.
Yeah.
And it felt really weird that they were there. Like it was like they were there doing like a residency in like a ceramic shop, you know.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. Like I loved being there and like talking. Like people would just like randomly stop by all day, you know, just to like hang out on the back porch, or you know, some people would buy stuff, you know, all day. Like there was a certain number of customers and a certain number of friends, you know, popping through all day. And it was just super, like, I don't know, laid back people, you know, friends of the owner, and the owner was super laid back, and like he reminded me of a lot of people that I knew. Luckily he liked me. I guess he doesn't like everybody or something.
Yeah.
That's the vibe that I got. That's what I was like told what to say when I got there.
Oh, just stay on the good side of things.
He reminded me of Lou from the Stone Tavern.
Oh yeah, I love
a lot.
Lou.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly. Like, but when you first meet Lou, you don't know if he just hates your guts or not yet. You know, like for like a while, like, and then like once he knows you for a while, he kind of like warms up a little bit. You know.
Lou's a character.
Yeah.
He would. I wasn't sure if he liked me. I'm still not sure.
Yeah,
You know?
right? Exactly.
I would be sitting in a booth, and he would just come sit.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, "Hey, Lou."
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, you know.
Oh, yeah. He would do that, for sure.
And he wouldn't say a thing.
I know,
other than,
right?
"Hey." And then I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
This is kind of strange. I'm not sure what to do here.
Yeah, I
And
know.
then he would just get up
Yeah.
and leave. Like,
Yeah.
not say anything. Just,
I know.
he's gone. And I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, I don't know what to do with that.
There. He has a like stoic expression about his nature, I feel like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I interviewed Nick. He owns that ceramic shop, and he has that same type of vibe, you know.
Got you, yeah.
Yeah. But I've known other people like that too. And it's just like you gotta like wait until their barrier comes down. You don't go at them, you know. You gotta wait for them to come to you. You know?
That's like when he came and would sit in the booth and he wouldn't say anything. I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, cool. You know.
Yeah, I played. Lou started playing drums in the basement there, and he's like, "Hey Matthew, why don't you come downstairs and we'll jam. Get your keyboard." You know. I was like, "Okay, cool, let's do it, Lou."
Yeah.
So we did that a little bit. We played on stage a couple times, you know, early morning on St. Patty's Day once. That was pretty epic. You were there for that.
I was just thinking, was that the St. Patty's Day that we hung out? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I almost forgot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've told that story many times.
I just know that like I left, we parted ways for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when I saw you again,
Yeah.
your head was bleeding, and
Yeah,
I'm
my
like,
whole
what
face,
happened to
my
you?
whole face was covered in blood and like. Yeah, like I stopped drinking on St. Patty's Day after that. I haven't drank since then on St. Patty's Day.
Just on St. Patty's Days.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't drink a lot, generally speaking,
No,
anymore.
you didn't. That's why I was like,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
then, I didn't think that you really.
Yeah, I guess I didn't then too much either.
Yeah,
Like,
it's just kind of a shock.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I grew up. I really only drank a lot from about 18 to 21 ish. You know, like.
Yeah.
And then after that point, it's just like, it's not cool anymore, and like, you know, kind of backed way off of it. And like, to me, I felt like I drank a lot after that point, but like that wasn't like a lot, you know.
In the grander scheme of things.
Yeah.
No,
like,
I got you.
I never was one to like drink at the house by myself. I
Yeah.
did drink 2 beers at the house by myself last night, which was weird, but like, I really felt like I earned it. So, you know, you got to give yourself a mulligan here and there too, you know. But
yeah, on a hot day,
yeah,
there's a reason people
it
like to
was
drink
pretty
a cold
hot
beer.
yesterday. Yeah. And I ran a couple miles, and we
That's
did,
right.
you know, I don't know. I got some things done, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Just sit down, have a beer, relax.
Hell yeah, you know.
Yeah.
But not that St. Patty's Day. That was just on a different. I was just like hitting the floor running all day too, you know.
Yeah.
Because I had kind of a thing about St. Patty's Day at that point too, where like I had partied with my one buddy Pirate down in Columbus, like a bunch, like on St. Patty's Day leading up to that.
Oh,
he always wore this green suit, and I always had like the green hat. I was wearing the green hat.
You were
that
wearing
day.
the green hat.
Yeah.
I have photos.
Yeah.
I have evidence.
I would like to see those.
I will send them your way.
I remember standing on a picnic table that day, proclaiming that I was Jesus to a bunch of college kids, and then I got kicked out of the Stone Tavern at 2:00 in the afternoon.
You got kicked out of the Stone Tavern?
I
That
mean,
takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, I know, right?
The only people that I knew
2:00 in the afternoon.
especially that have gotten kicked out of the Stone is like somebody that punched Lou once.
Okay. Yeah.
I think somebody urinated on a bar stool.
I don't know what I did. Out. I think he just cut me off. I think it was just like, I don't think I was kicked out necessarily.
That's what I'm thinking. That you just.
Yeah, that's what it was.
That it was more like, I see the path you're going down.
Yeah.
And I like you. I'm gonna protect you. You have to go.
Yeah.
Come back in a few hours.
Yeah. I think it was probably along those lines.
That's what. Yeah.
Because the way that it started was like a week before, Lou's like, Matthew, will you play all morning with Bob or someone, and then you can just drink all day for free. I was like, great, cool, you know. So we got there, and we had the megaphone out on the street, and we're just yelling random shit at people all like morning, with just the coffee and the Baileys, you know, just pretty much streamlined.
Yeah.
And then we were just jamming until noon. And that's when the open mic comedy thing started. I was doing comedy sets. I was doing car bombs.
Comedy sets and car bombs. Sounds like an album.
Sounds like a fun album is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I mean, overarchingly, it was a great day, you know.
That's cool.
There was I'm surprised I didn't get arrested, you know. But, like, at the same time, all is well that ends well.
Yeah, it was fun. Like, I had a blast, and we were with Reba.
Oh my God, I forgot about Reba.
Yeah, we were with Reba.
I haven't thought about her in a long time.
Yeah.
That's wild.
I saw her. She came into the Mustard Seed when I was working there.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
She hasn't changed.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
That's pretty epic. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good day.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't been able to hang around these parts as much as I'd like to, but
it's not the same without the Stone.
Yeah.
And I really miss those times and those days.
And even Professor's Pub was like pretty amazing as well. Like,
see, I was never at Professor's Pub. Okay.
Professor's Pub led right into it too.
That's what I've always heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was like the vibe was there when Professor's Pub was happening, and then when Lou took it over, it changed, but it got, you know, the style of it changed. But I mean, I love rock and roll, and I love everything that he did with it too. And like, so I was like in Seventh Heaven when that started, and I got to play there with like my old band when I still had the punk band and all that too.
Yeah.
So I was super happy that happened at one point.
Yeah.
Lou was like, "You remind me of the first Anthrax album." I was like, "Brad, dude, hell yeah."
I can see why. Yeah. Yeah, and the first punk band was remind me.
Underground Airplane. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
okay,
that wasn't the first. That wasn't the first punk band that I was in, but that was like the last punk band that I was in.
I was thinking. Well, I guess it wasn't really a punk band that you were in with, like, where Doc joined you.
Oh, with Rambunctious Bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and Amy and Doc and Bob.
Bob and
Amy.
No, there was another woman.
Oh.
That played bass.
Bob played bass.
She dated Bob for a while.
Oh, Jen. Coffin Riders.
Jen. Oh, that's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Is Coffin Riders.
Okay. Yeah.
And then it was the Rambunctious Bunch after that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the Rambunctious Bunch and Coffin Riders were happening at the same time too.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But then Jen and Bob broke up, and then I took over bass for a summer, basically.
All right.
For that band.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about something else here. So going back to living with the land, okay?
Yeah.
Permaculture. Do you guys start stuff from like seeds here and germinate?
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some things get started. So we have a seedling house.
Okay.
It's a greenhouse.
Yeah.
and we'll start some seeds in there and then transplant them out into the field.
Okay.
And then some things are direct seeded.
Okay.
So like in the spring, a ton of things. We'll do a spring planting and a fall planting. And so there's constantly succession planting that's happening.
Okay.
So if it's something like salad mix lettuce,
Yeah.
it sometimes gets started in the greenhouse and then plugged. If
Okay.
it's going to be not salad mix, but if it's going to be like a head of lettuce,
Okay.
and then if it's going to be salad mix and we're just going to cut it,
Yeah.
cut the leaves, then it's typically direct seeded.
Okay. Okay. I don't know much or anything about all of this. I tried to germinate some bamboo seeds a couple months ago,
Yeah.
and it didn't work at all. I tried like 3 different ways.
Yeah.
I tried putting them in like, the method where you basically just put them in like soak a paper towel and then put the seeds in there and then put it in a Ziploc bag kind of thing.
Yeah, we start parsley that way.
Okay. Yeah, I assume that there are different methods for
different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some things need to be cold and they need to go through like a mock winter before you put them in the ground.
Okay. Interesting.
And it's called, there's a term for it, and I can't think of it, so I'm off the top of my, I know it, but yeah. Stratification is what that's called. And then some things need to be nicked, or scarification it's called. So you like put the seed in between some sandpaper before you plant it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Probably just like to get some more surface area to it or to get it into it or something.
Well, some seeds will live in the ground or on the ground for like 10 years.
Wow.
And then an event has to happen, like a forest fire or something, and then they pop up.
Damn.
So those things need to be scarified.
Yeah.
So, and then you're just kind of pushing that process along.
Yeah.
A lot of herbs are like that. We don't have to do that with vegetables.
Yeah.
That I know of. There aren't any really that I know of. But with herbs, you have to do some.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I need to know that. I feel like everybody needs to know that, to be able to like start things from seed. It's a really important skill that like, I don't know, could really come in handy.
I think those are the things that we should be teaching in school.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. We teach the science of it somewhat, a lot of times.
Yeah,
but not the actual process. I do remember, like, germinating like a bean, I think, or like back in like elementary school, maybe.
Yeah, it's like
something like that.
I learned it in like kindergarten or first grade, maybe second grade.
Yeah.
And then you don't talk about it again.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, maybe if you're in high school and you take a specific course.
Yeah.
But we really don't. I didn't ever talk about it again.
No.
And so that's been a journey for me for the last several years, is learning about the food system.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of, it seems simple, and I think that we take it for granted that it is simple, but there's a lot of nuance, I think.
Yeah, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
I mean, it is and it isn't.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot to think about.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that, like, there's a lot of things that we do that with, though. We just take for granted that we think are simple, but, like, we'll take really decades to, like, really learn how to do something well,
Yeah. Well, and it's even just, like, it wasn't until a few years ago when it struck me to research it.
Yeah.
I didn't know what a pepper plant looks like. Not a sweet pepper.
Yeah.
Black pepper.
Okay.
Peppercorns.
Okay.
What does that plant look like?
Yeah, isn't it like a tree? I'm probably wrong. That was a lyric in
I
an old
can't remember now. I think it's a bush.
It was a lyric in an old Tom Waits song.
Got you.
Out by the old pepper tree.
But I need to look that up again, right? Or
yeah.
There are a lot of things like our spices.
I'm gonna check something real quick. Keep going.
Yeah. Or even some of our vegetables.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Like that they come from a plant.
Oh yeah.
An herbaceous plant versus a tree.
We lose context
how
for
they
these
grow.
things.
Yeah. People don't realize that a large percentage of their lawn is edible and extremely useful to the human body. Can be useful for it's medicinal. You know, it could be useful for ailments, useful for bee stings and bug bites, and even consumption. Wow. I think that if people knew that, we'd have less people going hungry.
Yeah, that's true too.
I don't want to eat the yard every day, you know, but...
Yeah. When it comes down to it, grasses, grains that are just naturally occurring.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of valuable resources that we need to take advantage of, and just to jump to a different level real quick with it, like as far as like where we're going, like inner city type, like, because I just think, you know, like what there's a lot of hunger in cities, you know, partially because there aren't things that they can just eat from the ground there. Right. You know, it's like all covered with, you know, sidewalk, concrete and that. And so we're coming into a new space now. Like in the next 10 years, they're predicting that like all the cars in at least the cities will be automated, okay? And so parking lots become available for use, okay? Now, I've heard that upwards to around a third of the surface area in a city is actually parking lots. And
I believe that.
Yeah. It's, I mean, how many people, if there's a car for every person, if there's a car for half the people in New York City, you know?
Yeah.
Like, easy. But no one has a car in New York City because you can't find spaces to park.
Well, and it's also too expensive.
Yeah, because you got to pay for a parking spot and things.
Yeah.
Like, I remember I've paid, like, just driving to different cities, I've paid some kind of ridiculous parking fees, you know. Boston. I was parked in Beverly Hills once in California. And I was like, I need to get out of here real quick.
I can't afford to park here.
I know. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think that the way that we're going to structure society in the near future is going to change drastically, and I think that it should. And I think that there's a lot of ways to do it. I get into now this is a little bit pie in the sky, a little bit pipe dreamy, you know, but like I love the whole idea of like, okay, we have these cities where we have like the normal like level, you know, like the road level type of stuff happening. Once all those turn into automated cars, like why don't we just like kind of develop another level of surface, like, you know, in between the buildings, but above the roadways, where it's just all green space walkways, you know, maybe like 2 stories above or something like that, maybe even 1, doesn't even matter, but like as long as like we're just taking all of like an enormous space and just turning it all green, you know, just trees and plants and, you know, edible things. And mainly not just for the fact that that's, you know, beneficial for, you know, people who don't have food, but also just like it's a great place to go to work, you know, like people are coming to a space now where they want to work at home or they want to work wherever they want to work, you know. So how do we produce spaces like in a city that people want to go to, you know?
Right.
Because I know I love, if I'm in a city, I'll go to a coffee shop every time and start working there.
Yeah,
just because there's other people there, you know? When there's other people around, like it's hard for me sometimes to work in isolation, and I'm better at it than I used to be as of last year.
Yeah.
Because I kind of had to.
Yeah, you had to, yeah.
But I love being around people, and I think that it's because I hold myself more accountable to a group of people that is just around me, whether they know that I'm doing it or not.
Right.
You know? Whether I know that I'm doing it or not, I think that I do it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of focuses me in. I'm like, okay, well, what am I doing really? I need to you know, just take out all the weeds. I'm like, I'm on the internet. I have anything available to me, you know? Like, so where's my mind going to go? Okay, well, I'm accountable for this thing, so I'm going to work on it, you know? And,
right.
And then the tangents that I do make, then I want them to be productive, or at least, like, okay, well, I'm going to explore this for a minute. Oh, okay, I got to get back to where, whatever. But
right.
That seems to be, as far as, like, where I'm at with it, a little tick, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I was going to warn you to check later.
Yeah, those guys freak me out a little bit, but
they freak me out too, and I pick them off myself all the time here.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that to your point about the walkways and stuff, I don't think it's pie in the sky. Actually, I think that there are organizations in cities and people working towards solutions like that.
Yeah.
When I was at Earth Haven, I worked for an organization that was on site called School of Integrated Living.
Okay.
And they're big into permaculture education and getting people on board, teaching them about permaculture principles and things that they could be doing that are sustainable.
Yeah.
A sustainable lifestyle. And I worked on their Facebook page for a while. And so I found all kinds of information about people that are turning their lawns into gardens in communities that have no resources because it's all concrete, right?
Right.
And food deserts.
Yeah.
In inner cities. And there's a gentleman out in California that's, turning his lawn into a garden and feeding his community.
Yeah.
And there are cities where they are planting up.
Okay.
And creating green spaces up their skyscrapers.
Nice.
So things like that are already happening.
Yeah.
And I think we'll continue to grow. And in large part, like you said, we are reaching a point where we have no choice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If we want to continue to live and live on this planet, we have to come up with solutions. Now, there's a huge argument around that, right? But I can tell you farming, that the weather patterns are changing drastically from year to year.
Yeah, that's I was wondering about that too.
Yeah, I mean, seeing it on the ground every day.
Wow.
Yeah. Like we this year had more rain in the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
In July.
Wow.
It's normally a dry month.
Yeah.
Here,
That's
right?
that's kind of what I remember it being. It's like it was like April or something. And like we're in the middle of July and it's just raining every day.
Yeah, we got between 8 and 10 inches in the last couple of weeks here.
Yeah.
So,
that's wild.
And there are other factors, I'm sure, too.
Oh,
the poles
for sure.
are shifting. There's, but there is, regardless of what is causing it, weather patterns are changing.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's scary. It's scary thinking about that type of stuff. But I also think that I heard a figure, I think it was last night even, that they were talking about in the next 10 years, we got to change. The good news, I think, is that things are going to change drastically in the next 10 years, whether we do anything or not. I researched electric cars, and I heard a speech, a keynote address to this conference recently. The guy was talking about how many moving parts are in a combustion engine automobile versus an electric car. Okay. And it's something like 937 parts in a combustion engine car are moving, whereas like 22 moving parts in an electric car. And you have the price is on this trajectory where an electric car is going to drop below, where anybody can afford to not buy it at that point, in the next, 3 years maybe, something like that. I know I've had some conversations with friends that are like, man, I really want to buy an electric car, but they're too expensive right now. I'm like, wait 2-3 years, man, and it'll just drop. It's supposed to drop right below where we're at right now.
And that's typical of technology.
Exactly.
Of all kinds.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
That makes sense that would happen.
Yeah, and depending on battery technology and all of that too.
Yeah.
What the charging stations are going to look like, but. Yeah, I mean, in 3 years, the whole landscape could look very, very different. And I think that no one, like, I don't know how many people are talking about this. Like, I don't think that normal everyday people care or if they're talking about it or not. But I think that the industries are definitely know that this is going to happen, you know?
Yeah, and there are and there are segments of people, right? So
Yeah,
there's these
yeah.
intentional communities and
True.
that whole that Ashville area.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you've got like Austin, Texas, and you have all of those
Yeah.
highly liberal areas.
Definitely.
That
yeah.
are talking about it and doing something about it. And I think there are more people than we think.
Yeah.
It's because it's not making the media, right?
True.
It doesn't
They talk
sell.
about bad news.
It doesn't sell. Bad news sells.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I when I was researching this stuff and working for School of Integrated Living, I'm seeing it happen all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And there are places in Western Europe that they're doing, they do a lot of food gardens. So like in Kent,
Yeah.
they have the edible Kent garden.
Okay.
And that, I think, came from some of those ideas in other countries where they're doing a lot of those gardens. People have laughed at me for this, but in San Francisco, they're doing what's called guerrilla grafting.
Okay.
So they're grafting fruit tree twigs, onto non-fruit bearing trees.
Oh, wow.
Botanically speaking.
Right, right.
Wow. So they would take like an apple
Yeah.
branch and graft it onto another tree.
That's wow.
And I have seen trees that have like apples and some other fruit,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
bearing all
Wow.
these different fruits.
Nice.
And they call it guerrilla grafting because
Yeah.
they're doing it under the cover of, and
Yeah.
they're creating food.
Yeah.
Even in Asheville, they have food gardens and are expanding them.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and then you get people in those communities, in those cultures that understand
Mm-hmm.
that food is really kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
they're doing a lot of wild harvesting and stuff. So those ideas are spreading.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's always going to be a subset of the culture that's like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
I
for
don't
sure.
want any part of that.
Yeah, and even like trying to move from a gasoline engine, it's like, well, I don't want to drive something that's not going to be loud,
Yeah.
or something like, I don't want to not burn something. I don't want explosions to not happen under my hood, like it's like a fundamental, it's like an emotional shift for a lot of people too,
I think it's all at how you approach it too.
Yeah.
If you approach something, I think about this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent an enormous amount of time thinking about these topics that we're discussing.
Yeah.
They keep me up at night.
Yeah.
So.
Well, don't let it do that. Just
but it's in a good way.
Write it down. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you're
okay.
right. I need to
yeah.
be writing it down, but there's this voice in my head that is like, okay, stop thinking about it and do something about it.
Yeah.
Like, get out there and be a person. And so that's one of the reasons I'm here.
Yeah.
Helping grow food.
Yeah. And on this podcast.
Yes. Thanks. But I think a lot of it is in the approach. So if I'm gonna approach somebody about who's another farmer who doesn't grow organically or doesn't use permaculture principles and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to approach this with how this benefits them.
Yeah. Yeah.
How this benefits their bottom line.
For sure.
For
sure.
How this is going to make your life easier.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm going to approach it. I'm not going to go and say you have to do this because of global warming or this or that or the other, because I'm not going to connect with them.
Yeah.
They're going to shut down.
Yeah.
Right? But if I say this is going to save you X amount of dollars a year and it's going to save you employees and work.
Yeah.
You're not going to have to pull as many weeds. It's going to make your soil more productive.
Speaking their own language.
Yes. Then I'm going to hit them.
Yeah. Knowing what their language is and being able to talk to them.
Yeah.
Because if you're coming at them from an angle where they can't even see it, then they don't even know what you're saying.
Right.
They're not even going to listen.
Right. Exactly.
I think a lot of people are learning that for the first time right now too. I know last year, with all of I got a little bit caught up in the whole political internet, debating world for a minute.
Yeah.
And it was man, that kept me up at night actually, because I just
Me
had
too.
so much adrenaline in my system just from I'm like, no, just kind of being angry a little bit, I'm just but I, as the writing side of myself would be oh man, I got a perfect thing to say to this person right now. And, how often does that ever matter at that point too? What I ended up learning then is the same thing what you were just saying, is that, a month later, you know, I'm just like, okay, I got to stop myself. I got to reevaluate where I am,
right,
you know, with this. And so what I ended up doing was, like, if they would post something, like people that were just like nonstop, we were just like on each other's feeds all the time, I guess, you know, and constantly just talking to each other that way. Like, I would comment positively on things that they would say, on parts of things that they would say, and then try to just make another comment just a little bit off the mark from where they are, you know. They're like, oh man, all these congressmen need to go to jail. I'm like, yeah, they do, and these ones too.
That's how,
or something,
yeah,
you know?
Like, where do we agree?
Yeah, exactly.
Where do we meet each other, and then start to build those bridges?
Yes.
That's how I always approach that. And actually, it's one of the things that I learned from living in that intentional community.
Okay.
Because it was more than just permaculture. It was a lot of, like, emotional and, you know.
It's a certain type of island politics that occurs, I would assume, too, because it is its own type of political arena, you know, in a sense that it's like all politics is just how do we organize humans, you know? How do we not fight each other, and how do we, like, help each other enough, you know, like. There's a lot of push and pull between people.
So you just have to find your commonalities and then go from there. So, you know, like, our neighbors are different from us politically, right? In this community, we're largely different. Our political beliefs are largely different than the community.
Okay.
So this is kind of like, and we had last year some unrest downtown. That made the papers between the Black Lives Matter protesters in town and counter protesters.
Gotcha.
And so, and it really hit us here on the farm and at the farmers market downtown.
Okay.
And so you have to think about, like, how do I approach this, you know? And how do I set that
exactly. Because then you realize it's kind of a wake-up call in a way too. Because you don't
it was huge.
You don't realize, like, who your neighbors are or what they, like, really think about, you know. Or I know when just in our small town over west of here, like, we had our own Black Lives Matter protest. Super small town, 16,000 people, you know.
Same here.
And there was a bunch of us out on the corner, you know. I brought my megaphone and all that, you know. But, like, it was surprising the number of, like, you know, big old trucks, like, you know, just you know, stomping on the gas and just being like, you know, F you guys, like, it's like, okay, thanks, man, you know, whatever.
It got very ugly.
Yeah. It didn't come to a point there, you know. Like, it didn't get to a head, but there was a surprising amount of hate that was thrown our way, you know.
It didn't turn violent here. But it was on the very edge where you were thinking, because we were working the farmers market, and it was like every Thursday during the farmers market was when there was the protest and the counter protest. And I was on edge every Thursday because you could feel it in the air, like you felt it at Earth Haven, right? You could feel like any moment that shoe could drop. And it, you know, where is this gonna go? Luckily, it never got that far.
That's good.
But it definitely came close.
So, and it definitely did go that far all across the whole country at that point,
it did.
too.
Yeah, there was a small town outside of Columbus where it got ugly and made national news.
Wow.
So.
There was a lot of I saw a bunch of video of just different, like, little small town squares, you know, that are just being protected by people with guns. Just like, okay, guys, you know, like, great, like, what are you protecting them from, you know?
Well, it's interesting because we get back to media, right, and what media is telling us about about the people who think differently from us, but also
because they're purposely trying to stir people up too. You know, they're like, oh, these people are gonna come to your town and they're gonna destroy your town. They're gonna destroy all your businesses and break your windows of your houses or whatever they think is gonna happen, you know.
But both sides are being told that, right?
Yeah.
And so then also you have the pandemic on top of that, and I think isolation played a huge part in this. It might have been different if we weren't also dealing with a pandemic and the isolation that created.
That's true. That's because you have a lot of people last year that really encountered themselves for the first time in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you had to face yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was lucky that almost directly a year before that, like the beginning of 2019, I experienced definitely that exactly, because I went out to Massachusetts and wrote a book basically, and
Fantastic.
I just stayed at I knew a guy out there. He ran like a hybrid electric car school, out there, and he gets interns internationally, except for not as many in the wintertime. So I'm just like, hey, can I come in the wintertime and just stay at one of your interns places and just write this book for 4 months, And
nice.
He's like, yeah, just work for me, do whatever, and so that worked out. But I didn't really try to make friends when I was out there, or I didn't go anywhere. I went to one show, which was super unusual. I'm at a show every weekend or 3, for years. And I went to one show because I was a little frustrated. It turned out to be a punk show, which hit the spot perfect for me that night. Anyway.
That's cool. Great.
Yeah. And but I basically just focused in. I was like, all right, I need to hit 2,000 words a day. Here we go. Let's just do it. And I did it, and it was fun. But it was the isolation was a little bit madness at points.
When I left Earth Haven, I lived in the woods by myself for a year.
Damn.
Year and a half.
Yeah.
Year and a half. And when I say lived in the woods, I mean I was 2 miles off the main road, down a dirt road.
Wow.
With one way in and one way out. It was almost at the very end of it. There were other houses.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see any of my neighbors in
Wow. Yeah,
in the summer.
Yeah.
In the fall, when all the trees, all the leaves fall, I could kind of see them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was something else. I've done that, and that can get.
Yeah.
And I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
That's my comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even I was after a year and a half of it, I was like, it's time to go. I'm starting to worry about myself.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It gets to a point,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, I have a line within myself. I know where it is, where if I'm isolated too long, or if I'm around people too long, I want to come back to the other side, Yeah. I definitely don't want to stay in either spot too long,
I am the same. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. But if I hit that balance good, I'm exactly where I want to be all the time.
Yeah.
Which is nice, but I think that some people just don't know how to deal with their selves in a large way.
Yeah, I think most people don't know how to.
No. Because our minds, if you dealt with meditation at all,
yes,
and things like that, then you understand how your mind functions, to the point where okay, I'm not my own mind. I'm not my thoughts,
Yeah.
My thoughts are just running all the time. And mostly they're just running about me being alone, or me failing at something, or some kind of worry, or desire, or some kind of weird aspect of and it's just okay, that's fine, I understand why I'm thinking these things,
Yeah.
Now, because I'm looking at them, and sometimes I can't. Sometimes it's still really hard for me to see that, Yeah. I'll be entirely encapsulated and think that thought is me, and then it's really hard to get out of that. Even though that I know, and I have to really focus, and that usually happens to me about once a day. It's a daily practice kind of a thing.
It happens to me off and on all day.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I've been meditating. I have 303 days straight.
Wow.
Under my belt.
Nice.
And I'm still not separating.
Yeah.
But I am going monitoring my thoughts. So I get into a place of anger a lot.
Okay.
And fear.
Yeah.
And it'll be about dumb shit sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes about big stuff.
Yeah.
That I'm not getting off my chest. So it just keeps running on a loop, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Where is this coming from? What triggered this?
Yeah.
Why? And okay, you can get rid of it by getting it off your chest.
Definitely.
You have the conversation, do the work, whatever.
Yeah.
But I went into the woods for a year and a half, purposefully.
Yeah.
When I was living in Earth Haven,
kind of the Walden.
I had a situation where I finally, like you have, I had an epiphany moment where I'm like, I don't love myself.
Yeah.
That's why I keep attracting all this crap into my life.
Yeah.
So then I went into the woods for that 18 months to face myself.
Yeah.
And it was like an everyday, okay, write down all the stuff you like about yourself. Let's just do this.
Yeah.
And why don't you like
that? Kind of like, there's the meditation side, and then there's like, then there's gratitude, Yep.
Uh-huh.
It's like being able to objectively look at it, and then objectively saying, okay, well, these things are good, though,
Yeah.
And not forgetting about that, because that's like, most time people don't realize how good they have it, and they just take it for granted,
Yeah, I do still.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's lifelong work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. It's
but
never.
It gets easier.
Yeah. You never get to the end of it, because then a new thing will arise, or a new person will jump in your life, and then the ripples will be in your pond, and it won't be steady anymore.
Right. But I do think you have. I hope. Right.
That
you have like more.
Yeah.
Of the good stuff.
Yeah.
And you're able to see more of the blessings and the things.
Yeah.
Than maybe you were 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean.
Yeah, and I
keep
think,
leveling up.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
I think I get it all figured out, and then I get like whammied, and then I'm like, oh, I'm on a new level.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like
exactly.
a video game.
Because you still, like, I still think that I'm like falling off the mark, but I'm falling off a mark to an extent where other people are saying, man, you seem really stable. And I'm like, really? Okay, cool. Like,
thank you.
Yeah. I got that like 3 times last month, and I was just like, okay, like, people think I'm stable. All right, cool. I got this. I think I got this,
Yeah, I'm getting better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sometimes think it's just because I look like I should be unstable, like the way I present myself sometimes.
Yeah.
So then it surprises them or something, like, and they have to address it,
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, I find that doing this podcast is very helpful a lot. I'm around like 20, 25 maybe I've done so far.
Yeah.
I need to go back and count them here. But the more I do it, the more I realized how much it puts me in the moment,
Yeah.
It's just, like, have you ever done one of these before at all? Or?
No, this is
Okay.
my first time.
Yeah. I mean, conversation's going great. Like, I feel great about all this. Like, this is some really cool stuff, Like, we told, like, a whole epic of that story, earlier.
Yeah.
Like, that was some powerful stuff. We got it into the weeds, so to say, with, like, a lot of different philosophical things. Like, I mean, that's just what I like to talk about a lot, I guess, in general.
That's my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
love depth.
Yeah,
for
sure.
I struggle with
Yeah.
shallow conversations.
Yes.
And so it's hard to like build relationships and stuff with people because it's just that initial, you have to have the shallow conversations to get into the deep end sometimes.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you meet your people and you're like, let's just go right into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what this podcast is all about. I used to not know that there were books that weren't heavy until like I got my mom like an Aldous Huxley book, like The Perennial Philosophy. I'm like, check this out. This is like all the religions in the world and then where they cross. And then like it took me like a year to read it. It was really hard, but like I think you'll like it. And then like I realized like she reads like books about Amish people and like just random fictional stories that are really light,
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's that like? Like, what? I didn't know that existed, and I don't know why that exists.
Okay, so I've been in both worlds.
Okay.
You know, and both have their place and are nice.
For sure.
Know? Yeah.
I understand it more now, than I used to then. Just because I understand how people need calmness in their life now too. It's like the same way that I understand music that isn't going 100 miles an hour all the time. Like, because I used to not understand that at all,
Yeah, I could see that. Now that I think about it, because your music does.
Yeah, I play a lot of fast music.
You do. You do.
And that's just kind of what I naturally gravitated towards. I remember when I was like 11, 12 years old, I really started to think about what I liked about music, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, this isn't fast enough, or this isn't like crazy enough, but there was always like, I wanted it to be something just amazing or something, you know?
Yeah.
Which means a lot of things, you know, to a lot of people.
Yeah, everybody's interpretation of amazing is different.
Yeah, exactly.
Like for me, I love deep lyrics.
Yeah.
So those are the songs that, like, I love George Harrison.
Oh yeah.
Right?
For real.
Because he really gets into some soulful, you know, emotional depth, and I like that.
All things must pass, you know.
Yeah.
And I've been getting more into R&B, I guess, a lot lately too.
Okay.
I got to see the Black Pumas play down in Columbus a couple years ago, and so I have that on vinyl, and I'll just put that on and make some dinner, and it's just like it puts me in a really great spot, you know.
Yeah.
Some Bill Withers or something too.
Okay, yeah.
You know, like.
I go all over the place with my music. Like I really love jazz and blues and.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I've been getting into classical a little bit lately too. I learned how to play, at least I learned how to play like the first 5 minutes of a Debussy, Clair de Lune, like on the piano.
Okay.
And that was, I mean, eye-opening in a lot of ways. I don't generally study classical music at all, you know, but I've been teaching piano lessons a lot lately too.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and so I've been trying to like broaden my horizons. I have studied some classical music in the past, but it never really like stuck with me a whole lot, I guess.
Yeah, it wasn't time for it.
Yeah, I think that's very much the case, and I'm a lot better at piano than I was back then too. It's taken me a long time. I've been playing piano for about 17 years now.
Wow.
And I didn't start till I was 20, and so it's like the kids I'm teaching now are like 11. I was teaching this 6-year-old or 8-year-old or whatever, you know, and it's like, whoa, okay, like everything I'm telling you right now is what I learned when I was like 20, like 5, 27, you know, like.
You start when you start. Yeah, you know, there are no rules.
Yeah,
you know,
like I think of 20-year-olds as really young, but like when it comes to piano or something like that, it's also, I don't know, it's all subjective, you know.
I know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you said I was like 20, I was like thinking in my head, oh, you were so old.
Right.
You know,
yeah. Like.
I started taking piano lessons in my 40s.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I don't play.
Cool. Yeah.
Because my piano teacher.
Yeah.
That kind of just.
Yeah.
It was Amy's mom.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
yeah.
Yana.
Nice.
And I think she, like, one day looked at me, she's like, you're a slow learner. And I'm like, I'm in my 40s, you know?
Right,
like,
yeah, for sure.
I'm trying this.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we all come at things in their own pace and their own time, you know? Like, I tried to pick up coding last year, and, like, I know to look at any code now that's a website, I know if it's HTML, CSS, or JavaScript just by looking at it,
That's
you
cool.
know? But I only studied it for about 4 months straight last summer, and like I was just like in it, you know, because I wanted to develop this website, it's interesting. Like the whole like idea for the website is kind of like exactly what I'm doing right now with this podcast.
Yeah.
In a way, in a matter of speaking, you know, because I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing until like my cousin Mike told me about it on the last podcast a couple days ago. He's just like, that's kind of what you're like. I was explaining to him the whole idea of like, oh, well, we need to have conversations on the internet about design and philosophy and politics, and it needs to be like moderated by a person, and you know, and like I'm going to make the rules. What's the time limit? What's the, you know, like how many people are we going to have involved and all this? And he's like, that's kind of like what you're doing, man. I'm like, yeah, I guess it is, you know.
So I worked for Progressive Insurance, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
I coded.
Okay.
So I will tell you what I tell everybody.
Yeah.
Is that you have to remember it's like trying to learn several different languages.
It is. Yeah.
You know, they call them languages for a reason.
Yeah.
So it's like knowing Latin.
Yeah.
But then trying to learn French and Spanish and English and.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
You know. It's not an easy thing to learn in 4 months.
No,
and not everybody can do it.
It was frustrating in its own way, for sure. And then I learned that they're like building these AI things called like the GPT-3 that came out last year. It's called like a general purpose transformer. It's like it's a type of AI that I learned that you can like type in like a normal sentence, right? Like, I want to build a website like this person's website, but I want it like this, and it's just a normal sentence and it codes it.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Computers can talk computer way better than humans can talk computer, I think,
Yeah.
It's what like, and that's maybe not right now, but in the next 10 years, that's what's going to happen, I think,
Yeah. Well, that's another thing about trying to program.
Yeah.
It's constantly changing. It's a moving target.
It is.
There's constantly a new language or an update to a language. So
yeah. I know. I've noticed that. Like, I don't think that it was a waste of time for me to study it, because like I understand now more about how functions work, how algorithms work, how like all the if and but statements, like it's like
for loops.
Yeah. And just for the fact that I didn't think this before, but I know that probably some people do, like as far as like they think that their computer is thinking, okay, and it's like it's telling them, it's suggesting this thing to them because it knows something, but that's not true at all. It's like a huge algorithm that they're running through all of these variables about who you are and the choices that you've clicked on.
They're looking at your patterns.
Yeah, exactly.
And unfortunately, or fortunately, you can learn a lot about a person by reviewing their patterns, and they're looking at your intimate patterns, right?
Yeah,
it's like a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, I'm sure Facebook knows so much about me. It's stupid,
Well, and the thing too is, like you said, it wasn't a waste for you to learn that. It's not, because it's such a big part of human existence right now.
Yes.
We are so immersed in technology.
Yeah.
It's good to understand how it works at its bare bones.
Yeah.
And how it's created and driven. It's kind of like understanding your food system.
Yeah.
To a degree.
Yeah.
Because we're so impacted by it.
It is, because it's our thought stream in a way too. Because like if I go on YouTube and I learn things, like I learned coding last year. I'm learning whatever I'm learning now. I learned how to build a computer last year. Like whatever it was. I just go from one thing to the next. And then my YouTube algorithm, if I don't have agency over what exactly it is that I want to learn at a given time, it'll just stay the same and just keep giving me the same things,
Yeah.
And I just get really bored, I learn everything about that topic that I want to know. And then I'm just like, okay, well, I've got to switch my focus. Yeah. Like, what is it that I want to get into now? What is it that I want to watch on a normal basis now,
I do that too. I dive into a topic.
Yeah.
Learn everything I feel like learning about it.
Yeah.
But that's like, I think I have ADHD. That's my brain is like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah.
Or I'll be like, oh, look at that. I want to learn about that now.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it takes a specific type of knowledge about those algorithms, I think, to change your songs, to change the movies, to change whatever that you're doing. Like as far as entertainment is education in its own way, and back and forth, because even in the whole world of like TikTok, I don't know if you know much about that.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many social media outlets now that I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I don't need you to control my whole life. I think about how many years I've lost, or how much time I've lost to just Facebook.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But anyway, you were...
Yeah. So as far as TikTok goes, it's I was calling it a human zoo at first, because it's like you have like a little window in everybody's house, and it's just a ton of random people's houses, like, and it's interesting to me. I love it because it keeps me it helps me kind of like see people through a different lens, like what we were talking about before, about like just knowing that there's just so much behind who that person is today that I don't know about, you know?
Yeah.
And just being able to see a bunch of random persons like, oh man, like I'm so frustrated right now, and like I'm gonna quit. This time I'm gonna quit because this happened and this happened at work, and then this person was like this, and it's like they're just venting, you know,
Yeah.
on this app, and it's I appreciate it a lot. I like to see it just because then I can like kind of gauge not only myself but just everybody else around me, you know? Like I'm just like, man, everybody else is like in this boat too, you know?
Yeah, so I guess that would be my question, because I'm familiar with like Facebook and Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Where you're only seeing what somebody wants to show you.
Yeah,
Right? Which
for
you
sure.
are every day.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah.
But there are moments in real like face-to-face connection
Mm-hmm.
where you're catching glimpses
Yeah.
of what's behind
Yeah.
all of that, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can see your friend's dirty house if you go over there. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Where like Facebook and Instagram
Mm-hmm.
are just this is what I want you to see.
Yeah, they're more snapshot.
Yeah. So I'm not familiar with if
Yeah.
TikTok is
It's just like
more real.
minute long videos.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people do like little informational little tidbits here and there, or like this conspiracy theory, or the CIA just dropped this piece of information, or a historical events, or whatever. Some people are more focused than others, but a lot of people, and your algorithm changes based on what you like and all that too.
Right.
And so I generally gravitate towards people who are just talking real about themselves and about life, and like it's just interesting for me to hear. It makes me like kind of, it's the same type of thing with the I think the reason why I got into it is just because I was isolated from people for a while too, you know?
Yeah.
And I just want to have a connection so that I feel like grounded again, you know?
I did that with my 18 months alone.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time on Facebook.
Yeah.
Because it was a social connection for me, but I could control it.
Yeah.
And I could consume what I wanted.
Yeah.
When I wanted.
Exactly.
And then, but it was an interesting experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Because I self-isolated and I was okay with that, but then at some point it became kind of dangerous. It was getting on the edge of this is not good anymore. It's not healthy.
It becomes an addiction too.
Yes. What I liked about, just to circle back again, but what I liked about living at Earth Haven was it was all about community. It was all about connection.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little too much.
Yeah.
You know, like when I lived in that big house with the great big windows,
Mm-hmm.
Brian Love's house, I felt like I lived in a fishbowl.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But that connection, social media is great to a point.
Yeah.
But we really need human interaction.
Yeah.
Hopefully the pandemic taught us that.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people are looking at a lot of things differently now.
I sure hope so.
Yeah. I think it's becoming a catalyst for a lot of different types of change. I know there's like a general strike a lot of people are talking about on like October 15th, I think. It's supposed to be like a nationwide thing. That's really big on TikTok right now.
I haven't heard.
Yeah.
But I'm not on TikTok, so
yeah.
Not really. What is that? It's a nationwide employment strike?
Yeah, just a general strike across the board. Anybody who's working, they're like, just don't go to work that day kind of thing.
I think
kind of demonstrate a certain type of power. They actually have, you know, specific things that they're trying to get, you know. Like, and they're not dumb about it either. They're at least saying like, okay, $20 minimum wage, so that they at least have a bargaining chip to go down to 15. You know what I mean?
Right.
Rather than, you know, what the national people are doing, or, you know, universal health care. That's one of them too, you know?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Somebody said to me yesterday, well intended, we just think differently.
Yeah.
I just wish people would go back to work because businesses are having to close down because they don't have employees.
Right.
And I said,
yeah,
I don't really feel sorry for, I feel sorry, innocent people who just can't afford to pay their people more because they're not making the money. I get that. Like, that's an issue for us, right?
Yeah.
that would be a hardship for us to pay a minimum wage, to pay a $15 minimum wage. We want to,
yeah.
Right? So we give bonuses when we can and do what we can. But businesses are closing down, and my response was, this has to happen.
Yeah.
This is what has to happen right now for us to move forward and lift people out of poverty.
And it's happened every time that they've raised the minimum wage in the past too. You know, it's right now it's at a very drastic change because we haven't raised it in so long.
I know.
What a lot of people, well, I think other countries have a minimum wage that gets linked to inflation. So when inflation goes up, the minimum wage goes up, so that it's more of a gradual thing over time.
Yeah.
Whereas like the way America has done it, and like there was talked about, I think back in the 70s, to try to move it towards that type of a system. But it never got passed. Something happened, I don't know. But it's having these really big jumps like that in the wages hurts a lot of people, and it's really hard to do.
Right.
But it's like that's the cost of living is at that point now. You know, and if you don't pay people what the cost of living is, worse shit is going to happen than just not being able to pay as many employees as you'd like to, you know?
Yeah. I felt some different sides of that, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
When I was at Progressive, I was making some very good money.
Yeah.
And then I hated that job. It made me miserable. And it's not the company.
Right, okay.
Since this is going to be
out
there.
Yeah.
It's not about the company. It was about, I didn't like programming, and it wasn't for me, right?
Yeah.
And so I quit, and I went and I lived in that intentional community, and then I didn't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
So I learned about herbs, and I went and worked for a health food store.
Okay. Yeah.
My income dropped to $11.25. It started at 11.
Yeah.
They gave me a 25-cent raise.
Yeah.
I couldn't live on that.
Yeah.
I could barely pay my bills living with somebody else.
Wow.
On that money.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, one of the owners of the health food store rolls up in a Tesla. And I'm like, that's great. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're paying me a wage I can't live on.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And I get that you built something, you owned it, you know, it was actually an inherited.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, you've lived this your life, you've worked hard, you know, you have this.
Yeah.
But there needs to be some balance here. Yeah.
And I have no qualms about a guy driving a Tesla and thinking that he's trying to help in that way too.
Yeah.
But like, and then you have Jeffrey Bezos making $2,500 a second, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, man, like at what point are people gonna have to step in and like really change things so that there's more of a balance?
Yeah.
So that like so that even if like we're at risk of like losing our job or something, at least we're not worried about just like being homeless or, you know, not having food or something. Like basic necessities need to be taken care of.
That doesn't have to be happening in this country.
No,
There doesn't need to
even
be
in the
a
least.
single homeless person in this country.
We waste more food than, you know, like anything else. Like, yeah, it's really, really frustrating.
You know, and there's that saying, you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So we need to get everybody.
Yeah.
We need to lift each other, lift everybody up.
Because that relieves stress and worry across the entire population.
It helps everyone.
Yeah.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you watch crime rates go down.
And it's economically, like, the more people that you have with the ability to, like, buy food in your community or buy anything, like, then you have, like, more population that's part of the economy. Like, if you're just, like, letting, like, a whole percentage of your population just not even participate in your economy, you're automatically losing money. Like, it doesn't make any sense on any level.
So I went through this experiment when I quit my big job and I moved to Earth Haven and I lived off grid and I lived on my savings, right?
Yeah.
So I had a large chunk of change to deal with, right?
Mm-hmm.
I felt totally free.
Yeah.
Right? I wasn't financially burdened.
Yeah.
I had a home and I lived off grid, right? So I had water and electricity and and I wasn't worried about it being turned off or shut off, right? Because it was coming from the sun. I went for days sometimes with very little electricity, but it was very cool. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And a lot of my when your focus is on how much sun is there going to be tomorrow and what can I do, you know, or I have to do the laundry and all these things while there's sunshine because for the next 5 days they're not going to be.
Yeah.
You're not worrying about dumb shit.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
You're not worrying about if your shoes are the latest or how you look or how you smell or any of that, right?
Yeah, superfluous, like, doesn't matter, never did matter anyway, kind of things.
But, like, all my needs, all of my basic needs were taken care of.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to be anywhere.
Yeah.
I wasn't working. I could do whatever I wanted with my day. That was true and total freedom. I mean, there are still boundaries and rules and regulations everybody has to follow, right? But I have never felt so free in my life.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was glorious. And I want that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I want that for everyone.
Oh, definitely.
And I wonder often what kind of world we would be living in if everyone had that.
Yeah, definitely.
Everyone would be doing what they
Amazing
love
things.
to do and be doing amazing accomplishments. And we would probably be, as a species, much further than we are even now.
Oh, definitely.
And we think we've come a long way. If you think
yeah.
about what we've accomplished in the last 100 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How much further? We'd be light years away.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's the world I hope.
That's what we need to dream of, and that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
How do we get to this place where people don't have to worry about just, like, dropping through the cracks of society, you know? Like, how do we just, like, make sure that people feel secure enough that they're not going to go, like, commit a crime because of their situation, you know?
Yeah, and I've been in that situation too, where I lived in Akron with people who are in deep poverty, and it is amazing the skills that they have developed for survival.
Yeah.
You know, if I sell these pills that I got from the doctor, I can earn this much money, I can go buy my son a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
That was a real life situation that I came across with the neighbor.
Yeah.
You know?
And what's even worse is we will house and food and, you know, shelter, like, give water to criminals who are in jail.
Yeah.
Because it's a complex, a money-making complex, like the prison industrial, like, complex kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, that's I can talk about that for a long time. Yeah.
Because there's tons of people just making money off of that, and they want the jails to be full, and all of this too. And that's a huge part of it too, that you can't, like, overlook, you know, because it's like, yeah, we could, like, help all these people, but then you wouldn't have anybody in jail, and I mean, that would be great too. That would also be great. Like, you know? Right.
But somebody is gaining from that.
Yes.
Because the solutions to all of these problems are actually pretty simple.
Yes.
And completely obtainable.
Yeah.
Right?
Easy.
That dream of mine is not pie in the sky, really. It's totally possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just all have to get on board.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we need to do the work. We need to volunteer a little bit, but as much as we can do, Bezos could do overnight. He could do this tomorrow if he wanted to, you know?
Yeah.
All of it. He could hire tons and tons of people just to do all of this work.
But the thing is, too, is what we don't realize, or I think a lot of people fail to realize, is we could actually force that to happen.
Yeah.
Right? That strike.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
If everybody just agreed to not buy anything from Amazon for like 2 weeks, it would probably completely annihilate that company.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because they have all their trucks out on the road. They have, like, in route things happening nonstop, you know? And if you put, like, a 2-week gap in that, like, they're spending a ton of money to keep that system going at the same time. I mean, it's hard, though, too. I mean, Amazon doesn't have a lot of overhead necessarily, though, either. I mean, Maybe with their trucks and their gas and things, you know, but they don't have any stores, you know.
No, but they have facilities
That's true.
They have warehouses.
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing is too, I mean, look what the pandemic did to like movie theaters.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's just they're gone.
Yeah, yeah.
Most of them. And so I don't want to pick on Amazon or any company. I'm just using them because
they're just a bad actor, you know?
Yeah. And I'm guilty of feeding that machine.
Yeah.
Personally,
It's
right?
so easy to do.
It's so easy. It's so convenient.
Yeah.
But we have so much power.
Yeah.
So much more power than we maybe realize, or just that scares us. Or we just don't want to give up those conveniences.
It's partially because it's collective power is what we have.
Yeah.
And the individuals
have a great deal of power too.
That's true. But we think of ourselves as individuals, and that I think limits our power a lot. You know, like that's kind of like the American dream, and it's kind of like the American culture in a lot of ways. Is this like if you individually are lazy, you should feel bad about yourself and all of this, like, whereas like why don't collectively you contribute as much as you can, you know? Like that's a whole different mindset, like, between the two. If people could just contribute as much as they could, you know, as they are, I think more people would be out working and doing things. And you know, but the way that it works is such on an individual, like, we're just putting so much like pressure and just like non-existent like stress on top of people, you know, just you know.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, so for me, you know, I grew up hearing and even saying somebody should do something about this.
Yeah.
And then one day it was like, you're somebody, I'm somebody.
Yeah.
So, you know, I made some decisions, like moved to this community and learned how to live off grid and what that's like. And that community, I think, does a lot of sacrificing that isn't necessarily necessary.
Okay.
So I think that people have the idea that you have to give up a ton of things to live off grid and to live sustainably. You know, like you have to give up a lot of modern conveniences, and you have to give up. You have to make a lot of sacrifices. You do have to make some sacrifices, but they don't have to be
anything in particular. Like you could still have the internet. You could still have
the internet. You could still have like the tiny home movement right now. You can still have a lot of modern conveniences, but they're scaled down.
Yeah.
But I think also what people don't realize is what you get out of that choice, and what you get out of that choice is a quality of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you won't really understand until you're in it.
Yeah. And that's the type of thing where you don't have the language to even express it or something, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's partially why I wanted you on the podcast, and partially why I do the podcast, is because I'm trying to find the words, you know? I'm trying to find, like, I'm trying to just learn. I'm just trying to learn, you know?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, like, my experiences there, the things that I took away that are the most memorable is that I truly enjoyed waking up every day and needing to understand what the weather was going to be like for survival.
Yeah.
That might not appeal to everybody, but for me, it was exciting, and it was this challenge, like, I can do this. I've got this, you know?
You're living with the earth.
You're living with it and in tune with it. And I would know, like, I knew the phases of the moon because that meant how much I was going to be able to see when I was outside.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know? And it's interesting. It fascinated me. But also what I got out of that I've always carried with me was that sense of community. It's like an extended family. And, you know, we have friends and we have family, but we're not dependent on each other to live and survive. Yeah. Those people are dependent on one another. They're a tribe.
Yeah.
They're dependent on each other to live and survive, and they handle everything together. They bury their dead there.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
They have their ceremony. They don't take them to a business and have them
Yeah.
prepare the body
Yeah.
and get it. And, they don't put them in a casket.
Mm-hmm.
They wrap them in beautiful blankets and sheets and dig the hole themselves and put them in the ground. And they teach courses on it now.
Yeah.
They've taken their learning and their experience, and they now teach other people how they can control that.
Yeah.
That you don't have to go in this new modern way.
Yeah.
They have ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
They have ritual.
Mm-hmm.
They eat together.
Yeah.
Once a week, there's a potluck.
Yeah.
And everybody eats together. And you belong.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have the arguing and the differences.
Oh, yeah.
And the bickering and the dramas. But at the end of the day,
That's almost healthy too,
it's very healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, they also have each other. So,
Yeah.
if I lose my child, which that happened to somebody while I was living there,
Yeah.
lost their 2-year-old,
Wow.
the whole
Yeah.
group comes together. You're supported
Yeah.
and you're lifted.
Yeah.
And you also are called to face your junk,
Yeah. Yeah.
But not only, you don't have to face it alone,
Yeah.
which is fascinating. I sat in the center of a circle. Some really heart-wrenching, difficult stuff happened to me there, and it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't tragic. What was really hard was sitting in the center of a circle of people and having them state, I don't want to say shout, but call into the circle, call into the center adjectives about you,
Yeah.
right? And it was good stuff. It's like strong, experienced, beautiful, all
Yeah.
these things that came up, and to be in the center of that
Wow.
and receiving that's not something we do in our culture.
No.
That brought me to my knees, because you don't, like me, I'm guarded. I didn't want people to see me be affected by that.
Yeah.
But you can't not
Yeah.
be affected.
Yeah.
And so I'm bawling, but they're tears of joy because, I didn't know this is how people saw me.
Yeah.
And
It's amazing.
those are things that are way more valuable than a fancy pair of shoes
Yeah.
or a watch.
Yeah. That's real life.
Yeah, that's not Facebook.
No.
Those aren't
just like love.
they're not like and love. They're like,
yeah.
let me go deeper with this.
Yeah,
This is how I
yeah.
witness you
Yeah.
in the world. This is the story I have for you. And I went through that, and that was just
Yeah.
crazy.
Just person to person, just right here, and just like a praise.
Yeah.
People are very much not used to that, and I know that just from playing music in front of people all the time. People will come up to you and be like, dude, you were doing this and it was really cool, you're melting my face, and whatever they're saying, and I'm just like, thank you. I have to I sometimes the reaction, or the knee-jerk reaction that I have, is to be like, oh man, you're great too, or whatever. But
Yeah.
sometimes you just want to be like, hey, thank you. You just want to take it, because they're giving it to you. You know?
And they get something out of that.
Yeah.
That expression, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, I did some other things. I participated in this exercise where I had to sit in front of somebody that I didn't know or barely knew, and in some cases that I did know, which is even more intimate to do this, and look them in the eye and not talk.
Yeah.
You can't break the eye contact for it was a minute or 2 minutes.
Okay.
And you would not believe how long a minute is when you have to do that, right? But
yeah.
it was...
When you're consciously thinking about it, it changes.
It was, because you're seeing somebody, you're really seeing them.
Yeah.
Because when someone's looking into your eyes and you're looking into theirs and there's no discussion, it is the most intimate experience I've ever had.
Yeah.
Because their emotions are starting to wash over their face and come through, and you see their pain, you see their joy, you see things that maybe they don't necessarily want to share with you.
Yeah.
But they're not able to hide it, and you don't experience stuff like that outside of that world.
No.
And
maybe at some kind of corporate retreat or something where everyone's tripping on peyote or something.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, but even then it's not. There's this shield up, or this
Yeah.
this other thing, right? but that, you know, we spend so much time in our modern society drinking alcohol and
trying
taking to get those barriers to come down.
Deaden the senses almost, so that like when like I heard someone say, I think it might have been some kind of a cartoon or comic book or something, where they were like, you know, eye contact is a spell, you know, these people are wizards, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. And I don't know why that stuck with me, but like but we do drink a lot, you know, when it comes to like, it's like, well, I drink socially, you know, or whatever. And it's like, that's just kind of a go-to, you know?
Yeah.
Smoking weeds or microdosing on like a psychedelic substance or something like that is a different thing entirely too, you know?
Yeah.
It's almost like you're trying to connect even more or something, you know? But what is just regular, normal connection between people, you know? Like, how often does that actually happen?
So there are so many things we could be doing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, but I learned that. I had no idea. And I didn't want to do those exercises. Like, they're uncomfortable, right? They're super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
For me, at least.
Yeah, definitely.
And to sit down, I mean, I don't do that with my family members.
No.
Right? I don't sit and go, let's take a minute.
Let's have some moments here, you know, like, and really bond, you know? Like, most people don't think about doing that at all.
But it's,
like, and to bring it back to having a community at death, you know, and support right there. I mean, there's also a community for bringing kids up in too, you know, like wherever, like the kids running around the community, you know,
and everybody's kind of raising them.
Yeah, because we all know each other, and like everyone has a certain level of trust across the board, you know.
Well, what's cool is elders are held in respect, and they're not called the elderly.
Right.
That's like a no-no. They are elders. They deserve our respect. They deserve we should honor them. And they contribute in that child rearing. Right? So they're teaching these children to respect age, and that age is not a stigma or shouldn't be. And it just even...
Yeah, because like so much in our society, we're just like, oh, it's such an economic drag on our society to have to pay Social Security or whatever it is, or that's such a cynical way to view the world.
Right.
You know, like I hang out with my grandma like at least like a few times a week, probably, you know, but like enough to like know like what she talks about and who she is and like her reactions to the world now, you know. It's invaluable to me, I think, too, you know, and it's just invaluable to each other, like for her to have someone to talk to, because she doesn't have many people to talk to, you know.
Well, and the thing is too, like we talked about I lost the thought. You're sharing stories. We talked about stories earlier. There are story keepers. You know, and they're sharing those stories and passing them down. And you're learning your family history. You're learning your ancestral history, right? And also you're learning about the experiences of those time frames. You know, and you're getting them firsthand.
And it's probably the craziest that it's ever been is right now too, just because it's like they lived in a world that is literally very different than ours, you know. Like, for centuries, the elders have always lived in a world that's exactly identical to the world that we live in now, you know? Like, not much changed from the year 900 to the year, you know, 1000, right? Like, 100 years went by, nothing really changed, you know? Like, maybe someone invented, like, a spoon or, you know, like, barely anything changed.
Not at the pace that it's changed now.
No. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, at the pace that it's at right now, it's like, oh, well, we didn't have TVs, but I remember when the TVs came in, and there was a war happening at the time, and, you know, and it's like all of these things, you know? It's like, and the war wasn't just, like, between two countries, it was between the whole world, you know? And nothing like that had ever happened before. And then we got airplanes, and they were part of it. And there was just bombs everywhere. Like, we never even, like, no one had ever had bombs before. No one had radio waves before. Like, all of this was just completely brand new. And also, everyone was trying to perfect it at the same time and use it, you know, for war. And that's just a madness was happening, you know.
I think about Betty White.
Right. She's 100 years old.
Right.
Like,
she was in radio.
yeah.
And then when TV was invented,
Yeah.
she was one of the first actresses.
Yeah.
She's still alive.
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just all of the things that single woman has seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd have to have a sense of humor like she has at the end of all of this, right? But could you
Yeah.
imagine what her life
Yeah.
has been like? All
Yeah.
these, wow.
For real.
Blows my mind.
Yeah. And then just be like, hey, I remember when computers were invented, I was 30 years old, and we thought it was a joke. You know, like,
Yeah.
that's where Betty White was at. She was literally, like, in 1950s, she would have been 30 years old. She would have been in her 30s when computers were being invented.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Like, I'm in my 30s now. Like, about almost to my 40s here, but you know.
I was doing the math in my head. Like, you know, like 7 years ago, you were in your 30s.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's like, what is being invented right now? Probably like automated cars, right? You know, like when and I don't know. I mean, they're also inventing like the vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, you know, that are like flying cars technically, but they're just big drones, you know.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of the races are starting right now. A lot of the like how like NASCAR kind of started, or all the racing leagues started to kind of promote the new technology that was cars.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, that was kind of how the original, the one of the first big drag races was with Henry Ford's 999, they called it. That's what the car was called. It was like made in the Model T factory or whatever, and this guy Barney Oldfield raced against this other guy who remains nameless because he lost the race. I don't know what his name was, you know, but
history is written by the winners.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I learned about it at the Henry Ford Museum, so they were all about the like, oh, you won that, and we became the leader in cars at the time, or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that was one of the first big car races. It was a publicity stunt, basically. And then you know, like about 10 years later, people start hot rodding Model Ts because in 1920, like, they had a whole different model of vehicle. In 1930, it was completely different again, and they had a bunch of people hot rodding cars and racing them on the beach in Florida, you know. That's how NASCAR started. And also the Prohibition era started it a lot too, because people were just running from the cops, you know, with moonshine and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
That's where all the original drivers came from.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things happened in the last 100 years.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm baffled. I'm
Yeah.
completely blown away by how much.
Yeah.
You know, I talk to people about it all the time, and when you think about it, like, it was just 100 years ago last year that women have had the right to vote in this country.
Yeah.
And in the world, it's only been like 103 or 104 years
Something like that.
that women have had the right to vote.
Women weren't even allowed to have a checking account in a bank until like
The
what?
70s?
Yeah,
60s,
late
70s?
60s, 70s, somewhere around there.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. That is like, that's an entirely different type of society, like when we were born, to compared to now.
I dare anybody now to tell a group of women that they can't have checkbooks anymore.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens there.
Right.
Everything will stop.
Yeah.
You know?
For real. There was a smoking ad it was taboo for women to smoke cigarettes at the beginning of the 1900s, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many different weird, just nuance, you know?
If you look at the advertisements
Oh, yeah.
in media in the 40s and 50s, it's
Yeah.
disgusting.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
So
just completely chauvinistic.
Yeah, and this is what you need to do for your man. Run
Right.
that vacuum cleaner and do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the
I mean,
point where that's just a joke now, you know, or a insult.
well, the Me Too movement. And,
Yeah, for real. The whole landscape is changing, and, you know.
It's changing faster than I think we can handle it.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of why we are where we are today.
Yeah.
As a society, is because things are changing at a pace that we are unprepared for.
Yeah. Humans have never changed this fast before.
Yeah.
Ever. And we're reaching a line where how much of the technology that we're creating helps us with our own humanity, and how much of it do we have to change ourselves to keep up with?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a line there. It's like, why are we inventing things like that and not inventing things that are just automatically just like helping, instead of just like we're just like inventing more hurdles to try to jump, almost, in ways too.
True. And then we're also creating that bigger and bigger separation of haves and have-nots.
That's true too.
You know?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are being left behind. And
like literally Great Grandpa Beebe, like Earl, like my great grandpa, was just self-sufficient on a farm, could make everything that he needed to use, you know, out of things that he had there, like blacksmithing, like farming. That's just what he did, you know.
Yeah.
Everything that you needed was right there. You built it. That's not even close to how we live now, you know.
Right. Everybody knew, or a lot of people knew how to do those things, right?
Yeah.
Maybe your blacksmith was the only blacksmith, or maybe there were 4 or 5 of them. Not everybody knew how to blacksmith.
But you knew how to do.
Connected to that.
Yeah, you probably had an anvil in your barn, though. You know, like, you weren't the main blacksmith, but you probably knew how to do a couple things.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got this from the blacksmith. It got bent, so I'm like reshaping it a little bit back where it needs to be. If it goes too out of whack, I'll get it to the blacksmith or something. But
now they're few and far between.
Yeah. Well, now, I mean, barely anybody works with steel, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if you're building a car and you're working with steel, like, you ain't going to find anybody to buy that car, you know? Like, why aren't you using, carbon fiber? Why aren't you using aluminum? Why aren't you, you know, like, I know I was trying to sell some, like, golf cart style cars to a place that rents golf carts in Florida, and I was talking to them about it. And they're like, you make things out of steel? Like, we're not going to buy anything from you, because it's not fuel efficient for us to have a whole fleet of those, you know? Like, even if it was, like, in their minds, steel is just not good, you know?
Right, yeah.
It's so weird. It's completely changed in material science, too.
Yeah.
It's just so many levels across the board.
Yeah. I like parts of where it's going, and I dislike many of the parts.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. It has some moments. we got some moments in there, you know.
Yeah.
Stone Tavern was cool.
Oh, that was yeah. Lots of great memories.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, did I tire you out yet?
I could probably talk to you like all evening.
Yeah.
I'm cold.
Sure. Yeah, it's a little chilly. We set up outside here.
Yeah. Plus, not even sure that our faces are showing up.
I know, right?
I think we're like we're this dark mass, this dark talking mass.
As long as the microphone's still picking it up, I'm putting these on audio only on podcast now too.
Oh, there you go.
Well, not yet, but hopefully next week or two.
That's the plan.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Got you. Yeah, but I mean, we're hitting on, this is the stuff I love that I don't get to talk about very much. And I could go, like I said, for hours talking about this stuff. But
and this is how I always talk to people at parties, but it's like, it doesn't last long enough. I'm like, this conversation doesn't belong at a party, does it? Okay, I need to like lighten up or something. You know,
I've chased people away, you know, unintentionally, but they're like, that's deep.
Yeah.
I gotta go.
yeah, for sure. And I didn't know this much about you before, honestly, but I knew that like we had things to talk about, you know.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah, this has been good. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah.
And like I said, you know, I've been isolated on this farm a lot outside of the pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, it's just when you're farming, it consumes most of your life, and so I don't get to do this very much.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
Well, I'm glad I came out here.
Me too. Yeah.
Definitely.
This has been good.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to go like get into the dark. I'm liking it. The bats are flying over us.
Yeah, I know. I've been watching them here.
Yeah. A couple of them nosedive a little bit.
Yeah.
Giant airplane going over us now.
That's really cool.
It's very low.
Yeah. I was watching a bunch of crop dusters. I was out on the trails biking the other day, and they were getting like, I was right next to the field though on the bike trail, and they were coming down just dive bombing right next to me. I'm like, oh damn, like I'm getting to the other side of the trail.
I'm a little uncomfortable.
Move over a little bit on the yeah, that was wild. Cool. Yeah, it is. I feel like just naturally coming to conclusion.
Yeah, we're not gonna be able to see each other very soon.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on the show, I guess,
Yeah.
We can continue this after I turn this off here, but otherwise.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been good. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. I don't really have like a way I sign off. Thank you, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
You get your tagline in. Or,
yeah, someday I'll figure it out here.
Yeah.
The way it used to be is my phone would just die and like run out of, or something would turn off or randomly,
Maybe that happened.
It's going. It's still going.
It's still going?
Yeah. I don't know about my computer over here. I'm gonna check on this guy.